everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Phil Williams. I'm the Public Works and Utilities Director with the City of Edmonds, and I appreciate you all coming out on this dark, not quite stormy night like last night. We at the city have been very busy the last 24 hours, and I'm sure you have at home trying to get your generators going if you have them, or I don't know, just wander around in the dark, or go out to dinner, or stay in a hotel. I'm sorry about all that, but tonight's the night for this meeting, and I'm so encouraged to see as many of you here as we have. I am going to have the distinct pleasure to lead the meeting off by introducing the Mayor of Edmonds, Dave Earling. He is going to welcome you formally, and then I'm going to introduce several other people that are here so you know who they are, and then we'll pass it off to our consultant team that will tell you how the meeting is organized so that we can be efficient. Mayor Earling.
Good evening. I'm going back home to a very cold house. So if any of you have any influence with PUD, I wish you could work. We spent a very cold evening last night. Not Phil's fault, but PUD. So anyway, I want to welcome you here. Putting together this task force and the map that they've tried to lay out, I think will really be a good thing for the community to begin to understand. We know now that we have trains coming through our town, basically, that shut down the waterfront access to and from about an hour and a half in a 24-hour period. Projections in trains is someplace around 100 plus by 2030, I think. That shuts down access both directions for 4 hours a day. 4 hours in a 24-hour period. That's clearly unacceptable, and the reason that I've been working hard with our state legislators to put together enough money that we could do a really honest-to-God analysis of what the best alternative might be in solving that at-grade crossing issue. We've had great participation and help from some of the players, Sound Transit, Community Transit, Motive Edmonds, Burlington Northern, have all been financial contributories to this project. The biggest chunk, besides the $100,000 from the city, comes from the state legislature, and they were generous enough to seed us with a $500,000 grant. So that's the reason this program is going on, and we should be thankful to all of the participants. I hope you enjoy this evening. I'm leaving to go back to a cold house. And the reason I do that, I want to be really upfront about this. I help with the help of some key players putting together the task force. But I'm keeping arm's length from the work that they do. I walk into one of their meetings, I maybe stay for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'm out the door. It's important work. I want them to make their decision, and I hope the community wants the same. I'll turn it back to Bill, and good luck and stay warm.
I have a few more introductions to make. I did want to run through the list of the mayor's task force members. Many of them are here tonight, however, some are not. If you are here, please raise your hand so that people can identify you. Candace Clyburn, I know, is here. She's with the HDR Engineering Office here in Edmonds. She's one of the citizen representatives. Ian Sterling, Ian's in the back as well. He's with the Regional Office of the Washington State Department of Transportation. Also, Lorena Eng, who's the head of that office, is a member, but she's not here tonight. Jim Orvis, I think many of you know Jim. He was a councilman here for the city for a number of years. He's shaking his head no, he wasn't. I'm just teasing. He's with the Port of Edmonds. He has family connections though. And Jody Mitchell. Jody's here with Sound Transit. And also Sound Transit, Patrice Hardy has attended many of these meetings, but Jody is the representative, and Patrice is not here tonight. Joy Munkers with Community Transit. I didn't see her earlier, and I don't think she's here. Kurt Greiner, who lives very close, about as close as you can get to the railroad tracks and the crossing at Maine and Admiral. And he's a citizen representative on this task force. Lynn Griffith is not here, I'm sure, but she is the head of the Washington State ferry system. Mike Nelson, who is a city council member currently, and he's one of the co-chairs, along with Mr. Orvis in the back, of the task force. The two of them run these meetings. Phil Lovell is a member of the task force. He is a citizen here in Edmonds, has an extensive history in engineering as well, which is helpful. Richard Wagner in the back also, and he is the public projects manager for this region for the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. Also with us tonight, we have two council members. One I just introduced because Mr. Nelson is on the task force. Christiana Johnson, right back over here. She's on our city council. Dave Keitzel, sitting right here, is, I will say, very close to being announced as a council member elect. The elections went well for Dave. And then also we have Neil Tippett. And Neil is likely to be announced as a council member elect very soon. And I don't think I've missed anybody else, but if you do, please raise your hand if you're on the city council. Okay, good. I wouldn't want to make that mistake. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Rick Schaefer. Rick is with Tetra Tech Engineering. They were selected by the city as the consultant to help us work through this alternatives analysis process. They've put together a very impressive team, and Rick will introduce the members and also discuss the format for tonight and how we're going to conduct the meeting. Rick? Here it is.
Thank you for get that train. Thank you for sharing your evening with us. Evenings are valuable, and but I think obviously this is an important topic for Edmonds. So we'll move forward. I wanted to. Where's our clicker here? Thank you. Okay, time to wake up. Okay. There we go. So I was glad to see people showed up early. They got a lot of time looking at the displays, talking with some of the team members and the task force, start getting oriented. We're going to try and just do about maybe 15, 20 minutes here, kind of summarizing what is before us in terms of a project, a study, and then after that we'll break into small groups, and we'll have facilitators there who can record ideas and questions that you may have that are generated by either the boards back there or what I'm going to be rambling about for the next 15 minutes. And then there's time afterwards to go back and revisit the boards or sit down with any of the team members here, and we can talk about some other ideas. Again, what this stage of the project is all about is getting input. There's no alternative out there that we're all looking at hard. That's be premature at this point, and I'll get into the study process here in a minute. So it's early days, and we wanted to get out quickly to meet with the community and get all the input we could, so we have the broadest array of ideas and concerns to weigh in the process. So the city's been looking at the rail crossings at Maine and Dayton for a long time. And what we're concerned about is denial of access across the tracks to the waterfront when there are trains passing. And as the mayor mentioned, the number of trains is expected to grow. But what we're looking for is a couple types of solutions. If we're looking at a big project, we understand that that's going to take some time to fund it and to get everybody to agree upon it and to construct it. And in the meantime, we still have this issue of access across the tracks. So we'll also be looking for near-term solutions, what some might term low-hanging fruit, things that don't take a lot of time to permit and a lot of money to implement, so that we can improve the situation as we get going. So I'm going to work off in notes, there's a lot to cover here, folks. Okay. You've been introduced to the advisory team. I will talk about the consultant team that's with me, the members who are here tonight. Again, I'm with Tetra Tech. We're the prime consultant for the city. We have a number of firms with us who provide specific expertise. And some of those folks here tonight are, we have Sandy Glover. Sandy? Raise a hand. Where'd she go? Step back. Okay. And Sandy was manning the displays over here in the southeast corner earlier. And she's with Parametrics. And, oh, there she is. Hey! Welcome back. And then Katie DeLue. She's with Enviro Issues, and she's the one who works all the magic of public outreach. And so the postcard that you got in your mailbox, you know, we worked on the content, and they make it look attractive and inviting for you to come here. Also worked on the logistics for the meeting. And the other important role is not just to kind of host these events, but also they will be in charge of assembling all the comments that we receive, and we're tracking through those and documenting to make sure that we get everybody's idea, that we understand the ideas that are being put forward, and then, you know, we can then consider them, you know, fully in the analysis. Have I missed anybody else? I think that's it. Okay. So let's just kind of summarize briefly why, you know, what the problem is that we're trying to purpose and in need of this study and any particular solution. Okay, our community has invested a lot in our waterfront, and this waterfront defines Edmonds to a large degree. We've got several beachfront parks up here, including a renowned underwater park. We also have, you know, a marina that hosts restaurants, businesses, a marina and fishing pier. All of these things that we like to go to. We have also, very importantly, we have a ferry dock that we need to get to and from. So, as you know, there are only 2 streets that we can take to get to the waterfront, Dayton and Main. We have a train going through there, they're both closed at the same time, and that's why access is an issue. And of course, the big issue is access being denied to emergency responders. And so that is our highest, that's why you saw back on this prior slide, you saw the top one, need is, you know, efficient, or I should say, being able to expedite emergency response to a water. So that's an issue. Another issue is, you know, interrupting the vehicle loading and unloading from the ferries. There's also a community transit route that crosses the tracks both on Dayton and Main in order to get over by the senior center. Oh, and there's another attraction on the waterfront, the senior center. And of course, then there's connections that need to be made between the ferry, between the sounder, between community transit, and personal vehicles, pedestrians. Everybody has to wait for that. So, a lot of needs. And the question is, what kinds of solutions are we going to consider in this study? The short answer is all kinds, all types. It's an open book right now, and that's why we wanted to have the meeting early here, so we weren't overlooking anything. There are a lot of concepts that have been looked at in the past. In the 1990s, the city had a consultant work on a study to look at different locations for the ferry dock. And actually, that might have been partly paid for by the ferry system. And it looked at places, one maintaining a dock here, one putting it over around Marina Beach Park, and then they were looking at a mid-waterfront location as well. The idea of redeveloping where the Safeway / Antique Mall / Sailors Crossing is now. About 10 years ago, they concluded the analysis of proposal for Edmonds Crossing. And that was to move the ferry dock over to the Unocal site with a flyover over the tracks to load cars on the ferries, about even with the south jetty, right next to the Marina Beach Park. That is still a live proposal, but it's been quiet for a while. And there's no money funded for it right now. And funding was the issue that, and the economy drying up on us is what put that project aside for me. Periodically, there have been other proposals thrown out there. Vehicle underpasses of the tracks, vehicle overpasses, and then most recently was the train trench, which was brought to the council last year. And this was an abbreviated study. It simply looked at could it be built and how much it might cost to build. Did not get into any of the operational or safety issues for the train, but what it proposed was to lower the tracks into a trench so that traffic on the surface streets could pass over. And there are some questions about that, and but it's one of the alternatives that's being considered. All these ideas, we're not throwing anything away. We're not going to start over from scratch. We're going to build on what has already been looked at and bring in the new ideas that you can contribute and the things that our team will develop. So let's talk about what the process is actually going to look like. Things got kicked off with the task force convening for the first time in September. We've been meeting with them in October. And by the way, the task force meets twice a month, second and fourth Thursdays, although they're going to take Thanksgiving off. And it's in the morning, and the meetings are open to the public. However, they're working meetings for the task force. It's not a forum for the community to interact, but you are welcome to be there. So we're looking to get this thing, we're going to get this completed by September of 2016. And where we're at right now in the shaded area, we're having this meeting. We're at the stage right now of bringing in all the ideas we can, and also getting the word out so the community is engaged throughout. There's going to be an opportunity at each one of these stages, roughly 3 months apart, for the community. We're going to have other public meetings where we can then talk about what is being considered, how you feel about it, what your ideas are about it, what considerations should be taken under advisement. So here in this first stage, as I say, we're simply collecting everything and compiling our ideas, and then we're going to move in starting in December, starting to flesh out those ideas, get a sense of how big they are, what their footprint is, how might they be implemented, rough ideas perhaps as to what they will cost, and then we're going to then also develop criteria by which we will evaluate ideas so that we can move our way down and narrow ourselves down to some preferred alternatives. So then next 2 quarters is when we get into these 2 different levels of screening. The first is a level 1, we call it, and it's screening the ideas when they've just been developed a little bit. We get an idea of what they might be, what benefits they provide, what they don't do. Maybe there's an idea we could put a couple different ideas together, or this kind of thing. We're going to be as creative as we can. And then in the level 2 alternatives review, which is going to be around May, okay, at that point, we will take what's left out of the first round screening. We're going to develop those more completely, have a better feel for what they would really cost. We'll have an idea of what it might take to actually implement those ideas, and then sort through those. Now, talk about evaluating. When you evaluate something, you use criteria, and that's another thing we're looking for input on. And I've noticed some people are contributing some ideas in the far the southwest corner there of the room, and that's really helpful. And so, but the general areas of criteria you might come across in these kinds of studies, obviously we've talked about, I mentioned cost, but bottom line, does it satisfy the purpose and need of the project? Does it get us the access that we need? Does it, and then start looking at impacts of it, financial impacts, but also its footprint. What does it take up? What land does it consume? How high is it? Hey, living in Edmonds for over 30 years, I understand. Height is an issue here. Aesthetics. What kind of business impacts and economic impacts might there be? Environmental impacts, certainly. If we're building something, we've got to watch out for the marsh. We've got to watch out for the shoreline. These kinds of things. Is it constructible? And constructability was the thing that we were looking at with the train trench. Could you build it? And our engineers know of a way to do that, so we determined it could be built. So it's that kind of an evaluation. Okay, and so then finally we come up with a task force developing recommendations with consultant team support as to what we think is the right combination of measures to take to meet the need. That will then be forwarded to the mayor and to the council, and we'll see what action gets taken. All along the bottom here, there's various opportunities to get involved. And you're here for this first one, right here. So at each one of these stages, there's an opportunity, public meetings, and also our online open house. If you think of something after this, tomorrow, next week, I think anywhere up to 2 weeks from now, the online open house will be open. And you go to that, and you can go through all this material. Your friends and neighbors who could not make it, they can go through it, track your comments, and we're taking comments and ideas. We welcome them. That kind of access, online access, will be available at each of these junctures. And so and then of course at the end, when it goes to council, there'll be a public hearing. We expect most of the format to be similar to what we're doing now. We get opportunity for discussion, interaction, and then the overall project will benefit from everybody's input, because we'll have a truer sense of what's important, what's the crying need out there, and that needs to be met, and come up with projects that are going to adequately meet those needs. So, Katie, you want to move us into the next phase?
Yes, I do. Okay, now for the fun part where we need all of your participation. I'm going to need some help from you in a few minutes to form some groups. The groups, we're going to have some small group discussions. Each of these groups are going to be facilitated by a member of the task force or one of our consultant or city team members here. And in each of these groups, I'll need a volunteer from the group to help track notes on a flip chart. So once we're organized, the facilitator is going to lead each group to discuss 4 questions. We'll take about 20 minutes to do this, and they'll walk you through the questions one at a time. There's some basic ground rules. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. If you have cell phone or other electronics, please silence them, and it's totally fine, of course, to take a call if you need to, but just step away from the group so we don't interrupt the conversation. Avoid side conversations so we can make sure folks are participating in the group. Be present and kind to your group members, please, and be time sensitive. We want to make sure that we're hearing from each person in the groups. After we go through the 20 minutes of a group discussion, we'll nominate, you get to nominate a person from your group to report out to the whole room. We're just going to have 1 minute per group to do this. So we'll keep it very brief, just hit the highlights or anything that's unique to your group that you haven't already heard from the other groups, and I'll let you know when we're ready for that. So with that, Hannah in the back here and I are going to come around and help you get your chairs rearranged. We're going to do a little movement of chairs here, and I need each of the facilitators to please grab a flip chart and some markers, and we'll help sort out the groups and get this going. Thank you.
say it's tolerable. If when they're really fun about going from an hour and a half to 4 hours of train enclosures, then I think it's not tolerable.
I would tell you this much, he didn't make that up. That actually was information provided at some point in the not too distant past by the railroad themselves to expect, that many additional trains over a certain period of time.
Are they gonna add tracks?
Yeah, there is a plan, and there's a very, yeah, that's true. Very firm plans to add a second track, but when is not firm at all. They usually say somewhere between 3 and 17 years from now, we'll complete the second track.
But the plan will have to accommodate that.
Yes, the plan would have to accommodate that. In fact, they sometimes say there'll be a third track. I've seen some of the people in the railroad kind of raise their eyes when you hear that. Just think about the physical difficulty of putting in a third track, because that would have to be waterward of the existing track. The second track will be landward of the existing track, but that third one would have to be on the water side. You'd be out in the beach somewhere, What's that?
One dude says what they have. I've worked on the train trench in Reno, and it is a Burlington Northern. The train company loves it. It has been a urban design pedestrian disaster. In my opinion, I would want to know what the trench does when the Antarctic melts. When the Antarctic melts.
Sea levels rise. That's beyond the scope of this video.
But it should be. Climate change needs to be part of it.
I'm with you.
Probably during your term.
Yeah.
Concerns are,
Right. Other alternative ideas.
I'm still thinking about it. Other parties, because I think it's probably really trying to gather all the information.
Now that would be impacted by climate change.
Generally improve the main ferry traffic, such about access. That may all categorize that as sort of another. In other words, it would be nice if we could solve that problem along with getting around the track.
A heart attack is more than a nuisance that you're emergency that your ambulance or the EMT guy can't get to you. Sorry, there's a train in the way, Yeah, and what if it's blocked because of one of these issues? That's a very big issue for us. Okay, the next issue is, and this is where we just put on our wild hats. What are ideas to potentially solve this problem? Potential solutions.
Short-term recently, like 10 or 15 years ago, the city actually had worked some grants to look at relocating this ferry. They had secured about, I think it was $80 million. Then when they did a more detailed analysis, they actually figured out that their estimate came out at like 240 million. So it was about 3 times as expensive as what they had secured. So if you don't spend the money, you get a grant, you got to spend over a certain period of time. And it wasn't spent for over 5 or 10 years. There was no progress. So basically, we lost it. So
We lost the opportunity. The idea was to come up with the funds in this area, to be able to leverage it to get federal funding, and then of course the economy slid.
So I want to ask, before we make any decisions that cost real money, I want to make sure that, is WashDOT going to put on their capital ferries, but on the other hand, they should go on buses for sure. So it's not a budget, that is a budget. Why I know we want to make sure that we understand exactly what's going on in terms of the WashDOT ferry.
Everyone said you can skip that for your own group and just hit on the unique items, okay? All right, here's our first group.
All right, thanks. We said so much that no one will have to say anything after us. No. So, range from access to the ferry, to the beaches, the dining and retail experiences, obviously for recreation, boating. Some of the other things that were pointed out, though, are that it's a meeting place, that the waterfront is kind of like the front porch of our community. A lot of people just want to meet there and view the sunset and things that are not quite so obvious, like going to dinner there or boating. And the whale watching expedition started this summer, too, as well. Concerns related to accessing the waterfront for those issues are obviously the traffic backups, in particular related to emergency access. The high-speed trains, or at least the perception that they're high and noisy, affect enjoyment of the beach, especially at Marina Beach. There is a concern, this is somewhat related, but a concern about the connectivity between all those activities along the waterfront and whether that is obvious and pleasant connectivity. Noise and air pollution are concerns. Obviously, when there are issues, even last night, there was some down, the gates were down for 2 hours at Maine. So obviously there's concern about response time for emergency access and regular access. Some of the ideas that we threw out were obviously overpasses and underpasses, but to be more specific on whichever of those makes sense, to consider kind of a lower profile, lower cost option that provides pedestrian and bicycle and occasional emergency access, if that's possible, as a lower hanging fruit, I think somebody used that term, and not necessarily always focus on the biggest project. There was even things thrown out like potentially having EMT, emergency and fire-related services and equipment on that side of the waterfront, or a boat that accesses as like a fireboat or an ambulance. There was talk about obviously a trench. There was talk about helicopters and other things, limiting the length of trains, which I don't think we have any authority over. And some of the couple just last things we're concerned about, in addition to all those things, were the future of the ferry terminal, what's the ferry division think about, and also daylighting Willow Creek, whatever solution we come up with, very concerned about the ability to daylight the creek in order to enhance the marsh.
Thank you.
And I missed something.
Okay. Over here? Okay.
Hi.
I'm reporting out on the small groups right now. Okay.
My name is Royce Napolitano. This is my group, and we have some ideas here. Following the same format, of course, our access and how we use that was both walking, driving, and other transportation options at Main Street in Dayton, motorcycles and others. And our activity, much in line with the other comments, were boat traffic, family outings, marine life, viewing, restaurants, and other activities on the waterfront, viewing the trains, some of the exercise routes along the port and marina, the people seeking out places to read, the activities at the senior center, and the sunsets that go, like we saw this summer, amazing, night after night after night. So the concerns that we listed here, between the train speed, train noise, number of trains, the pollution created by trains, the crossing concerns, and also lighting and alarms that go along with those crossings. The train derailment question about spills and accidents. Concerns continuing to the small town aesthetic that we have and maintenance of that small town aesthetic. Again, the train trench concept and the impact to Willow Creek. Also, the Washington State Ferry's long-term terminal plan effect on the project. We also had the vehicle and train accidents and the prolonged or extended delays that go on with accident investigation, like we saw some or heard of some specific examples over the last year. Also, mudslides and the effect on the train traffic that has. And then solutions that were discussed. So the tunneling, trenching, or bridging the train traffic. tsunami safe plan was something that was asked as a consideration during the solution portion. We also had an idea on the one-lane pedestrian bridge from Sunset down to Brackett Landing as an emergency access. The staffed aid station on the waterfront. And then also double tracking the train so the traffic flow may be optimized in a way that I remember was increased traffic when there's less opportunity for disruption for the other options of the uses of the waterfront area. Separating the vehicle and pedestrian traffic at differing grades, so vehicles moving at a different grade than pedestrian traffic. And then lastly, rerouting trains out of the waterfront area entirely. Thanks. And then in our general comments, it was asked, can we look at what other cities' solutions have been? And then can we also design a shallow or reduced visual impact in the actual crossing itself?
Thank you. Moving on over here, just hit on items that haven't already been discussed.
Which is a handful that don't need to be discussed again. One thing that wasn't discussed was the need for additional parking on the west side. That parking is limited and is often used at the senior center by people who are not going into the facility. The other, I think the bigger pieces that we did touch on was to be certain what if the need is real versus the dollars that will be required to shift that. The other one is that the trains are priority, whether we like it or not, they hold priority and everything else has to stop. That is a problem. Miss anything? Okay, next. Alternatives, to look carefully at the Edmonds crossing, study the trench, make sure that climate change impact is understood. We discussed train routing, changing the routing and changing schedule to think of better ways to work both of those. We touched on, and others have, but I think it's worth emphasizing, the pedestrian emergency access only approach, or a waterside fire, police, emergency station. And then to fully understand and make the impacts during construction known publicly. A trench requires a side track. Where does that go? The problems that are still out there that need to be looked into, the flooding problem, which was mentioned, that was an event last night. And quantifying the delays is something that I think was raised here that hasn't been mentioned before. What are the delays, and to quantify them, count them, understand what they are in terms of the impacts. Are they delays for leisure? Are they delays for emergency? Are they delays for ferry? Understand what those are separately and what they are. Review crossing issues with people that are dealing with more of them. In Seattle, the entire south of the city is covered by the crossing problems, as is the area right north of the market. Add an urban designer to the consultant team. This is not an engineering project, it's an urban design project. That it needs to fit in Edmonds, it needs to be pedestrian sensitive, and people need to be cared for. And then understand very thoroughly what Burlington Northern's obligations are, both legally, that they have to handle, to their shareholders, and then what are the obligations to the City of Edmonds? What are they obligated to do for us?
Anything to add?
Yes, I'm Charlie, and we're going to do the ads here. So on access, the things we don't think we heard mentioned, so to add those on real quick. Access to the fishing pier, We even mentioned the polar bear plunge on New Year's. And another one, visiting family and friends who live on that side of the tracks. And you kind of, by mentioning vacation, a constituency that's not here that requires access to would be tourists. Like to go to that side of the tracks all the time. And then under concerns, again, adding on to what's already been said, 24/7 access is important. Developing, and someone did mention this in terms of profile, developing a solution that's as invisible as possible is certainly something that we discuss. Safety, that got mentioned a couple of times, sense of danger, safety, especially if the tracks do end up being double tracked, which they probably will. Now you've got trains going both directions, and so that adds some complexity for vehicles and pedestrians. Financial impact to the merchants when access is denied, that's certainly consideration. And then under solutions, I don't think we necessarily had anything too different from what already has been mentioned. We mentioned the mall. We kind of brainstormed it, meaning one solution not better than another. So we mentioned elevating the railway and some other things that may or not be viable, but worth looking at. Someone else mentioned integration with other plans, including the potential relocation of the ferry, benefiting all stakeholders. Again, that involves all the groups we've already talked about. And then under environment, other couple of things we came up with that haven't been mentioned yet, big environmental impacts in terms of whatever that's the solution is. And going back to the earlier comment, trying to make sure that the solution ensures safety as much as possible. And that's it for us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we're getting a little short on time, so let's keep it to about a minute each from here on out.
Okay, everybody's been really, really thorough, so I'm going to be very, very quick here. There's only a couple things that I'm not sure have been brought out in here. One we were just talking about, we're all walkers kind of in this group. The pedestrian crossings, that it would be nice to have shelter from the weather if you were waiting for a train to go by, or a place to sit, or a place to go buy a cup of coffee, because the coffee shop's closed in the evening a lot of times. So that was a new one. We need to look at some long-term parking for Amtrak, and even the buses in there. And then just to kind of emphasize too, the use of expert urban planners on this. It's really hard for us, just general public, to come up with design concepts that are out of the box on this. And I think there are people out there that have done it. And just to even share with this group some different ideas might generate some new thoughts on our behalf.
Thank you. Yeah, so just a couple of things that came up in our group that we talked about. One concern right now is that emergency response access is particularly because the scuba dive park is so well used, and so emergency access for any safety issues with scuba divers is really important. Everything else we kind of talked about, that they don't want Edmonds to become a train town, it's a waterfront town, is an important business. We talked quite a bit about as a solution, reconfiguring the Edmonds crossing idea that was, I think, proposed quite a while ago, but reconfiguring that to maybe address some of these solutions. And then also we talked a lot about other cities and maybe what other cities in our area and across the country are doing to address similar issues, and looking at what others have done. And then in terms of criteria, things that are important to look at in the analysis is the community image for visitors and residents, and also how property values are impacted potentially by any alternatives. And to talk to businesses, particularly those that they may or may not depend on the ferry traffic. So I think that covers everything. Did I miss anything? Does that sound good?
I'm looking at our list, and I'm not sure how much we have that hasn't already been said. I think that one item on concerns is about who's going to end up paying for it, and having clarity about what the goal is, and to be sure that whatever solution is designed to meet those goals is scaled to the extent of the problem with quantifiable data. Talked about syncing up the ferry and train schedules, and move some buildings and move the track. And I think, other than that, I think everything is pretty much,
Thank you. And we have our final group here.
Well, this will be a short list. We talked about the Bell Street overpass and making sure that it's emergency access with heads and bikes prioritized. That operationally that we have better communications with the trains to go ahead and have the ferry service go ahead and send out a signal to the trains saying we've got an emergency going on. And maybe do the same thing with our own emergency providers. We'd like to prioritize passenger and commuter traffic over freight during daylight hours. Protect and enhance the waterfront from Sunset to Marina Park. Some of our other options were to make sure that we maximize our other thoughts were to maximize our recreational resources and to add that to our plans, and how could that be incorporated into the access considerations. Train train people out on the waterfront for emergency response, because that's a very low cost solution. And that it was recognized that this is really a once in a generation opportunity that we have to do this, get it right.
Where was the implication for the street?
Oh, well, we talked about both Bell Street and to use the old right-of-way and maybe have it elevated at the south end, at the old Edmonds Landing. We talked a little bit about the funding priorities for WashDOT and thought that that's more on a 10-year plan rather than on a 5-year plan.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. We really appreciate your participation. These are really productive discussions, and they've gone really well. I want to make sure you all know how to reach us outside of this meeting. If you have further comments, we have comment boxes here. You're welcome to fill out the forms and put those in the comment boxes. We have this same information is also available on our website. We have an online version of our open house, so you can type up your comments there. We have these little cards. Hand them out to your friends and neighbors and make sure everyone you know has the chance to participate as well. We want to hear from as many people as we can on this. And that wraps it up. We'll stick around for about 15-ish minutes and answer any outstanding questions. You can look over our displays once more. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much.